The detention chamber hummed with the low-frequency vibration that all Zephyrian architecture seemed to emit, a sound designed to induce submission in most galactic species. Lisa Chen sat cross-legged on the cold metallic floor, her dark eyes scanning the seamless walls with the calculating gaze of someone who had never learned the meaning of defeat. Another human disruption, Chancellor Vexthon had declared to the Academy Council just an hour prior. 3 weeks at our most prestigious institution, and she has already challenged 17 professors, redesigned our quantum mechanics curriculum, and somehow convinced half the Altarian engineering students to abandon their final projects in favor of her primitive human solutions. The other council members had clicked their approval mandibles. Humans were still a novelty in galactic education, barely a century since first contact, and their admission to the Intergalactic Academy of Sciences remained controversial. Most species required centuries of mental conditioning before they could grasp even basic interstellar concepts. Humans, impossibly, seemed to intuitively understand principles that should have been far beyond their evolutionary development. But Lisa Chen was proving to be something else entirely. Raza al-Mansuri found her 6 hours into her detention, having picked the lock on the chamber door with nothing but a stylus and what appeared to be a modified nutrition cube wrapper. The young engineering student from Mars Colony had been searching for his study partner, though he suspected he'd find her exactly where the Academy's disciplinary system had intended to break her spirit. "Comfortable?" he asked, noting that she had somehow arranged the room's sparse furnishings into what could only be described as a command center. The single chair had been elevated on a platform constructed from stacked equipment cases. Additional seating, clearly intended for supplicants, had been arranged in a semicircle before her improvised throne. "Incredibly," Lisa replied without looking up from the holographic displays she had somehow coaxed from the chamber's basic monitoring system. "Did you know this detention facility has access to the entire Academy database? They literally gave me a direct line to every research project, every classified experiment, every impossible problem their best minds have been struggling with for decades." Raza settled into one of the arranged chairs, recognizing the gleam in her eyes. He had seen it before, during their first astrophysics class when Professor Krilthax had declared human mathematics charmingly primitive, only to watch Lisa solve a millennium-old Zephyrian equation in her head. She had that same look now, the expression of a predator that had just realized the trap had been laid in reverse. "What are you planning?" he asked. "Revolution," she said simply. "But first I'm going to solve their energy crisis." The Academy's energy problem was legendary, a computational paradox that had stumped the galaxy's brightest minds for over 1,000 years. The mathematics involved accessing power from parallel dimensional frequencies, but every attempt resulted in catastrophic system failures. 17 different species had contributed their greatest minds to the problem. None had come close to a solution. Lisa had been working on it for 23 minutes. "The issue isn't mathematical," she explained, her fingers dancing through holographic equations that reshaped themselves at her touch. "It's philosophical. Every species in the galaxy approaches problems by building bigger, more complex solutions. Humans ask a different question. What if we're thinking about this wrong?" By the time Chancellor Vexthon arrived to check on their detained human, Lisa had gathered an audience. Word had spread through the Academy's communication networks, somehow bypassing their security protocols, that the human in detention was broadcasting open lectures on dimensional energy theory. Students from every species had begun gathering outside the chamber, then inside it, as Lisa's impromptu modifications had expanded the space using principles no one quite understood but everyone wanted to learn. "I, Miss Chen." The Chancellor's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. "You will cease this disruption immediately." Lisa looked up from her elevated position, surrounded by floating holographic displays showing dimensional equations that pulsed with an inner light. Raza noted with amusement that she had somehow managed to make the basic detention uniform look regal, a trick of posture and absolute confidence that seemed uniquely human. "Chancellor Vexthon," she replied with perfect courtesy. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. You see, I've just solved your energy crisis, revolutionized your approach to dimensional mathematics, and accidentally discovered what appears to be a method for faster-than-light communication that doesn't rely on quantum entanglement. The silence that followed was profound. In the background, the low humming of Zephyrian architecture seemed to shift frequency, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Furthermore, Lisa continued, I've been in communication with representatives from 47 different worlds who are very interested in these solutions. They're particularly curious about why the Academy has been sitting on problems that any human undergraduate could solve, and whether this represents a systematic suppression of human intellectual contribution to galactic civilization. Chancellor, Vexthon's skin shifted through several colors that Raza recognized as extreme agitation. You cannot possibly— Oh, but I can, Lisa interrupted gently. You gave me access to your entire database, remember? Including your communications logs, your research funding records, and your rather extensive files on managing human disruption in academic settings. Did you know you have a specific protocol for preventing humans from advancing too quickly? It's fascinating reading. The detention chamber had become something unprecedented in the Academy's 1,000-year history. A throne room where a human student held court, solving impossible problems while casually exposing institutional prejudice, with the systematic precision of someone who had never been taught that some challenges were insurmountable. Raza watched his study partner transform punishment into power, isolation into revolution, and smiled. This was why humans were dangerous, he thought. They didn't just refuse to accept limitations, they turned those limitations into stepping stones. By the time the Academy Council convened an emergency session, Lisa Chen had become something they had never encountered before. A human who couldn't be contained, controlled, or dismissed. She had turned their detention into a demonstration, their punishment into a platform, and their attempt to humble her into the foundation of her own academic empire. And she was just getting started.